Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Customer from our first story got what she deserved, and hopefully she took something away from it other than a bruised ego. Pro tip: don't tell the person trying to save you money to bleep off. Backstory time. About a year ago, I was working seasonal at a gift store. My store sold things from a wide price range from $10 pins to $750 clocks, not to mention the main draw of our store was custom engraving, which cost even more. For Christmas, we had a buy one, get one 75% off, which was huge. But the stipulation was you get the discount on the cheapest items. I was one of the people who worked the machines and not a sales/cashier worker. Also, we don't discount engraving costs, so I won't mention them. So the actual story, it was a slow day. So they had me practice on the register if I ever needed to do it, in the event the actual cashier was on break. So I'm ringing up my first customer, slowly, since I know bleep all about the register system. She had bought two fairly expensive gifts, around $200 to $250 without engraving, so she was getting one of them for $50. Now, as anyone who's worked in retail knows, you have to give a spiel about reward systems or some bullcrap. As I started ringing her up, she asked for a $4 gift bag we sell as well. I say of course and add it to the register, and noticed that since it was now the cheapest item, return the $200 item to full price. I was about to mention this. Me equals me, customer equals C. Me: now miss, I should tell you... C: I'm very busy, and your incompetence has already taken way longer than this checkout should have. I don't want to hear about your rewards program. Me, taken back a bit, as up to this moment she was pleasant. No, I mean... C: just check me out already. Me: okay. I ring her up, tell her the total, $450 without engraving costs at this point, which isn't that uncommon for this place, and she pays, going on her way, acting like I'd kept her waiting for hours when it had been about 10 minutes. 10 minutes later, she's back in here yelling about how we ripped her off, that we didn't give her 75% off. C: how come I was charged full price? It's the cheaper item. Me: it was until you bought the bag. I was trying to tell you that, but you cut me off. C: well, I demand a refund. Me: I can't do that, ma'am. We cannot refund engraved items, and since you bought these as part of a buy one, get one, you would need to return all items. Then she demands my manager, who tells them pretty much the same thing. We can't refund engraved items, unless we F them up, since we cannot unengrave it. And our second story. Got my first corporate complaint in over 2 years. I very rarely get complaints on me, and it's been more than 2 years since someone was so unsatisfied with my help that they actually called corporate on me, but all that changed last week. I've been going around the dog food section of the store facing the cans and smaller bags when an older man, maybe in his 60s, walked up and asked if he could get someone to help him get a 30-pound bag of dog food up to the front. He didn't have a cart with him, so I told him that I would be happy to help. I grabbed his chosen bag and walked up to the front with him. Nothing really seemed to miss. I made small talk, asked about what kind of dog he had, chatted about the weather because anything below 70 in Florida is worth talking about. I helped him out to his car, thanked him for his patronage to our store, and went about my day. All seemed well. Yesterday, however, I get called into the office where my GM's waiting to speak to me. She tells me we have a huge complaint on me and that she's gone up to our DM and that I'm to receive a write-up as per his orders. Apparently, I was expected to have gone and gotten one of our male associates to help this guy. I insulted and humiliating this customer by grabbing the bag myself. He said in his complaint that it was totally unacceptable for a little girl to lift those bags and that I was obviously trying to make him look like a weak old man in front of other customers. I'm so mad about this because I got the write-up, which I refused to sign because all I was doing was my job, and had to have a counseling session with our GM and ASM about how to properly respect our customers. When I was hired, I had to prove that I could lift and carry 50 pounds if I wanted to work on the floor for this exact reason. Floor associates have to be able to help customers with bags and boxes that they would not be able to lift themselves. I was never once rude to this man, never once mentioned anything about how he needed help with the bag. I did my utmost to provide the best customer service to him and followed the store's stupid Guest Plus model of customer service. I did everything right, and I'm still getting in trouble over it. And my GM and ASM never once said that it was their crap complaint. They just kept going over and over how I need to be more aware of customer sensitivities and how it really is reasonable that an older man would not want help lifting from a 5-foot-tall little girl. So sorry, sir, that I did my damn job and even helped you out to your car. Ugh, I'm so mad. Sorry for the rant, guys, but I figured you lovely folks would understand the need to vent this. Edit. I've now made a call to my HR department and I'm waiting to hear back from them. The moment the phrase gender discrimination and sexism came into the conversation, I was transferred to a supervisor. They seemed very sympathetic and more than a little bit worried about legal trouble over this. I've gotten a copy of the write-up that I now have at home. I'll get back as soon as I have any more information about the situation. Edit. I also have faxed a copy of my write-up to HR so they have a copy of it as well. Update. Today, or I suppose yesterday as it's well past midnight now, I got a call back into the office to speak with our DM on the phone. What had apparently happened was misinterpreted by my GM was that the complaint was forwarded to him and he just forwarded it to our store. He never actually read what the complaint was outside of customer was humiliated and insulted, so he wanted an immediate action taken. Still really crappy response, but it is what it is. He apologized to me profusely for several minutes before telling me that the write-up was to be rescinded and that no disciplinary action would be on my employment file for this. I have to say I'm still feeling all warm and fuzzy several hours after listening to him eat crow over this. He's normally such a jerk. It was lovely. I did make a point to tell the DM that my manager shouldn't be punished for following his direction. This was me unashamedly covering my own butt. I need this job, and I won't have them thinking I was trying to get them in trouble, despite the fact that if it hadn't been handled the way it was, I would have done my best to crucify them. I'll fully recognize and acknowledge that it was an act to mollify my managers. My ASM and GM both have apologized to me as well. HR must have jumped right on this because I really wasn't expecting to hear anything about it for a few weeks. Yet I did tell them that I understood their need to write me up after a direct email from the DM, but that I was hurt that I was chastised for doing my job. ASM told me that she understood how I felt and that she would feel the same way, though the GM didn't seem to have much to say about it at all outside of being sorry that all this happened. I still think they should have told me it was a crap complaint when they talked to me the first time, but it's happened, so I'm letting it go. I'll give my own apology to those who so very much wanted me to fight this harder than I did and for leaving it at this. I got the outcome I really wanted, an admission of wrongdoing and an apology. I have a 2-year-old who's growing faster than I can keep clothes on her, and I need to be able to support her. As much as I hate my company, I need this job, and I really can't afford to piss off the people who make my schedule. They backtracked so quickly that I'm feeling some serious righteous vindication. This had actually turned out so much better than I thought it would. Thanks again to all of you.
And our next story. Make my life hell at multiple jobs? I'll get you fired. Backstory. In the early 2000s, I worked for an overpriced CD store. I really liked my job aside from one coworker, Karen. We just didn't get along. I tried to make the best of it, but she was a borderline bully. Of course, she gets promoted to keyholder and proceeds to turn into a full-blown power trip bully. She made my life hell, and a job that I had previously loved I couldn't stand anymore. I made a formal complaint that made its way to HR, but I was done working there, which was her goal. Of course, when HR investigated my claims, they found she and the assistant manager were dating. Oops. And she was moved to another store since fraternizing was against policy. Apparently, she didn't like that store and quit. A few months later, I was happily working at Defunct Bookstore, and who gets a job at the Defunct Bookstore at another mall? Karen. Over the next few months, she proceeds to do little things to annoy me, like hanging up when I would call their store for a customer or leave me on hold forever. Of course, I would get in trouble for not effectively handling the customer with their needs. The revenge. About 6 months into the job, I heard through the grapevine of store gossip that Karen had been injured in a car accident. Apparently, she had hurt her back and went on medical leave. She couldn't stand for more than 10 minutes at a time without excruciating pain. This is important. She was on indefinite leave, and the store couldn't hire anyone to replace her while on medical leave, leaving them shorthanded. And I knew her manager was really annoyed after a few months. 2 months later, a few friends of mine and I decided to go play pool. A former coworker, Rick, from the overpriced CD store was there. Rick, man, too bad you weren't here last night. It would have been a reunion. Karen and assistant manager were here playing pool. Me. Karen was playing pool? Rick. Oh yeah, they come in every Wednesday night. Me. Really? That's interesting. Every Wednesday, huh? How long has this been going on? Rick. A few months now. Yeah, for the entire time she was on medical leave, Karen was out playing pool once a week, not at home in debilitating pain like she claimed. The next day, I went to her defunct bookstore and asked to speak to the manager. I told him all about her weekly pool sessions and encouraged him to be at the pool hall the next Wednesday night to catch her in action. That Thursday, she was fired. The last time I saw her, she and her friend were attempting to follow me home from work. I called the police and led them into the police station, where they told her to leave me alone or be arrested. She stayed away from me after that.
And our last story. Neighbors threatening to sue if I renovate my lawn. My husband and I purchased a house prior to being married in June 2021. Our house is on the corner lot of our neighborhood. However, we didn't know or realize, I guess, that our house collects water from every house on the street behind us, as well as our next door neighbor when it rains or they drain their pools. This is literally because our house lot is just naturally lower than everyone else's, no other reason. I was talking to my neighbor, nice guy usually, about upgrading our yard. There was a large above-ground pool there before we moved in, and it was removed before we even toured the house, but the divot's still there. We've tried regrowing the grass and it won't grow. Our yard is unusable for several days after it rains, even once. It's just mud and a marsh. I was telling our neighbor we were going to raise the grade and add a decorative rock garden along our fence to help mitigate this and protect our house. However, my neighbor has told me I can't because it'll back water up into his yard and then his yard will be a mess. I told him that's not really our problem because our house is taking on the water of half the neighborhood and I want to use my yard and I can't. He said he'd fight us on this if he sees us renovating our yard. His gutter spouts from his house and the house behind us are aimed at our yard and not the street. I told him moving those would help, and he said no, because it'll ruin his front yard. Am I really not allowed to improve my yard? I don't see how he gets a say in us upgrading our yard. We don't live in an HOA. Edit 1. The renovations are supposed to include a French drain, too. Edit 2. This is not a DIY. We're hiring a landscaper. The landscaper, who we already interviewed, told us our yard is not in its natural state and should be higher, as in we need a lot of dirt to fill in the holes and divots left by the neglect of the renters who used to live here. Also, this might be relevant, but the renters lived here for 15 years. My neighbor moved into his house 6 years ago, so he's under the impression the damage from the renters is supposed to be there, and our landscaper said our yard was basically abused and no one bothered to fix it before we moved in. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.